Okay, this video is going to show how to get 8bitdo controllers working with RetroPie 4. Now when I say RetroPie 4, it's a bit of a lie, that's not out yet on the 13th of August, but it is using RC1 for RetroPie 4, so the Bluetooth section that we'll be looking at is unlikely to change significantly, so it should still cover 8bitdo quite comfortably. Now a lot of people do use 8bitdo and often have queries about them. I think generally the brand is pretty well known now because it's got really good build quality along with that retro look, so it's ideal for use with RetroPie, and they work really well with RetroPie as well. So once you've got it up and running, I think you'll really enjoy using that type of controller. So what we'll do is in this interface, I won't do it from the command line view, I'll do it all in this sort of user interface. So there's minimal, now with the updates that have happened in RetroPie 4, there's minimal customization you need to do or tweaks. It's pretty much all menu driven, so you should be able to get up and running pretty quickly. So what this is a RetroPie, as I said, that's RC1 download, and that's I think that's been out at 2 or 3 weeks now, and if you haven't got that already, you can update your RetroPie script to get the same functionality. So as long as you've got that version, you'll see the same menu system that I'm getting, and no doubt it'll be really similar, if not identical, in the final release of RetroPie 4 as well. So that's on a Raspberry Pi 3 I'm using here, which obviously has got built-in Bluetooth. I've got a iBuffalo USB controller plugged in, and I've got a keyboard plugged in. And that's all I've done. I've just burnt the image to a SD card, and I haven't done anything with it at all except go into this RetroPie menu and choose the quick install option. And the reason you can see the Mega Drive icon there is because one, I've installed the emulator for it using the quick install option, and two, I've copied a Mega Drive ROM across, and that's why and how you get the emulator logos to show up. So if you don't see anything, it's because either you haven't installed the emulator or you haven't copied across the ROM. Well, they're saying that actually if you just copy across the ROM, I imagine the logo will pick up. You just won't be able to run it unless you install an emulator. Anyway, right, we're going to add this Bluetooth device to RetroPie, and I've installed the game under Mega Drive so we can test it out. First, we go in the RetroPie menu and we want to choose RetroPie Setup. So go in there, and as I said earlier, what I did before I played the game, I went into Manage Packages and chose Quick Install, because that just really installs all the essential elements of it, and that's all I've done. So I haven't done anything extra. I haven't installed any optional or experimental binaries at all. So just go back here, and we're going to go into Setup menu. In the Setup menu, you've got Bluetooth. So I'll choose Bluetooth. Now there's a chance it might install something, so like I say, I haven't done any of this on this build yet. In fact, it's the first time I've used this release candidate version, but I imagine it would be the same as the other ones. So we go in Bluetooth, and now I've got option to register, remove, display, setup, connect, configure, and 8bitdo mapping hack. Okay, I was just reminding myself what the options were there. If we run down these quickly, we've got register and connect to Bluetooth device, so that's what we're going to do to get it to connect to the new controller from 8bitdo that we haven't seen before. The one I'm going to use is a FC30 Pro. You can see all of them on the 8bitdo website. There's about 7 or 8 different ones, but the one I'm using is an FC30 Pro. That's the one with the analog sticks on it as well. Second option, pretty self-explanatory, remove a Bluetooth device that you might already have paired. Then we've got display registered, so if you're not sure what you've currently added, this will obviously just show what it's currently aware of or what you've previously configured, just a display view. Then this option is quite useful, set up a UDEV rule. Essentially what this does is make sure that even though if you registered, paired, connected your controller, it makes sure that Emulation Station will correctly, I guess, interpret the input. So it's important to do that, and it does it automatically, that step. So we'll do that once we've registered the controller. Then we've got connect now to all registered devices. I've never used that. I suppose it's useful if you've already registered your devices and there's a few and you don't want to manually reconnect, just hit that and they'll all get connected at once. So no doubt it's useful in certain circumstances. This one, find amazingly useful. It's a great addition to the update, and it makes the 8bitdo controllers and probably other ones work really, really well. It's basically some extra commands that run when the RetroPie setup starts up to connect to your controllers. So if we go into that option briefly, you see there's three options. Default, just do it you're doing at the moment. So for example, on certain builds, when you restart RetroPie, it will quite happily automatically reconnect to the Bluetooth controller or the 8bitdo controller. I find it doesn't for me, and I could be wrong, but I think it's related to, if I use the downloaded image, it doesn't tend to automatically connect to my 8bitdo controller. But if I install RetroPie myself on a sort of plain Raspbian build, it does do it automatically. But anyway, the point is here, I could choose boot and it forces that connection, so when I restart RetroPie, it reconnects to the controller automatically. I don't have to do anything. Absolutely brilliant. And then this one, background, and background, by the way, includes the boot option. So if you choose background, you get boot as well. And background is if you're idle for too long and the connection drops between your controller and the Bluetooth device in the Raspberry Pi, then this will just automatically reconnect every X minutes. Maybe it's I forget how often it checks. It's quite frequently though, so it'll reconnect quite quickly if it does lose that connection. Again, a brilliant addition. So these really do make it quite easy to use a Bluetooth controller. Okay, so I'm going to keep those. I'll cancel that out of that, so I won't change those for the minute. Now the last one. This is what I didn't have in my last video, and it's really important, and at the moment I think it's causing a lot of people confusion when they're using 8bitdo controllers. As you can see from the menu, it says 8bitdo mapping hack on old firmware, and if I change that, there it just flips and says off new firmware. So with 8bitdo controllers, obviously they've got firmware in the controller, and from time to time 8bitdo release an update to that firmware that gives extra functionality or fixes bugs or whatever. But some of the firmware it basically, I guess, interprets when you press the buttons, it outputs certain codes, and some of those codes are incompatible with RetroArch effectively. So you'll notice that when this happens and your controller isn't working properly, for whatever reason, the number 11 is quite key. You'll see that your controller output file, and I'll show you that later, is 11 short of what it should be. So for example, pressing button A, instead of outputting a value of 20, which it should do, it'll output a value of 9. I'm not sure why, but the point is this hack gets around the problem. And the problem that people are finding is that with the controller and the firmware and the hack, their combination isn't right. So for example, I've got an FC30 Pro, it's running firmware 1.69, and it seems between 1.68 and 1.69 was when it changed the way that it outputs the codes. So for me, if I had 1.68, I would have the hack on. As I've got 1.69, I need it off because the firmware is corrected effectively. I don't need the hack. I don't know the exact firmware versions for all of the controllers, but it's definitely the case on the NES 30 Pro and the FC30 Pro that if you're 1.69 or newer, you should have the hack off. But really it's a pretty short trial and error session. If your controller doesn't work, change the hack, or rather if you're on 8bitdo, if your controller doesn't work, try changing the hack, go back into Emulation Station, re-add the controller so it'll rewrite the file, and then try it again, and that'll probably solve it. It's just the hack being on or off because the firmware changes the output. Anyway, whilst I'm on topic of firmware, a lot of people also are trying with lots of beta firmware options, and to be honest, I just stick with the stable releases, so it's easier to help debug, and you go, okay, I know it's that particular version. I wouldn't upgrade to a beta version unless there's something you're desperate to use in that new release. Yeah, but anyway, in short, if you've got FC30 Pro or NES 30 Pro and your controller isn't working, turn the hack off and do it again. And that's probably all there is to it. So we'll run through that and see how we go. So I've turned that off because I know my controller will most likely need it off, but I'll show you how that differs. Okay, register and connect to Bluetooth device. Searching, right, well, I haven't turned it on, so I'll turn it on now. Okay, it's turned on now, and I'm also going to press a couple of buttons just because I think that seems to help it connect. Right, it's found a device. I happen to know that is not my controller, so I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go cancel, and I'm going to turn my controller off now. Turn it back on now. I'm just holding the power button so the blue light flashes. Do it again, searching. Still not found it. Okay. Try that again. I've just left it on at the moment. With the FC30 Pro, the connection mode you want is just to hold the start button. For example, not start and right or start and B or whatever. Just start, or power rather, not start, power. Okay, now it shows up. So it's the top one. I happen to know that's the MAC address because I've done this, I don't know, 30 times now. Okay, I'll select that. And I'm going to choose the display yes no option, and successfully registered. And at that point, as soon as that pop-up came there, I've got the blue LED on the side of the controller, solid blue, so I know it's connected. Okay, so I don't need to remove it. I don't need to, well, I'll display it. I should see what that looks like. There we go, active connections. That's the MAC address at the bottom, and you can see there actually it's got 8bitdo FC30 Pro, and it's got the MAC address there next to it. Okay, now I do need to do this because that's how Emulation Station identifies a controller. So I'm going to set up the UDEV rule, press OK there, and I'm going to choose my controller. And there it just tells me where it's written that file. You don't need to know anything about that. It's just quite helpful that it says what it's done and where it's done it. But that's a one-time thing. You don't need to do that again. That's written the file. And as it says, you need to reboot for it to be aware of it. Okay, so we've set up the rule. Connect now. I don't need to connect now. It's already connected. Configure the Bluetooth connect mode. Yeah, I'll choose the boot option. Okay, so now I know that it's definitely for me going to connect on boot, and I happen to know that off is the right setup for me. So what I do now is, I think the best bet is probably just totally reboot the Pi. I'll hit cancel. It'll take me back to emulations. Back and exit. Okay, so it's taking me back to Emulation Station. Now, what I'll do when I restart is press start and go into configure input for the controller. Actually, no, Emulation Station sees it now, so I didn't need to reboot to get that to do that, but you could if you want. Okay, anyway, it's found it. So, 2 gamepads detected. If I hold a button down on the controller, there you go, so that's the name at the bottom, and goes into this. Now I just press the buttons as it describes. Down, left, right, start, select, A, B, X, Y, left shoulder, right shoulder. Now for whatever reason my left trigger rarely seems to register, or at least not the first time. Oh, I did that time, button 8, button 9. Okay, right, left thumb, right thumb, up, down, left, right. Oh, I've obviously misclicked there, it's got not defined, but don't worry about that, it's only the analog buttons. And up, down, left, right. Maybe I clicked them before, I don't know. Either way, I wasn't very happy there. Okay. There, now I'm controlling this with the Bluetooth device now, the 8bitdo controller. So that's all fine. Now what I'll do is I'll quit out of this to the command line and I'll show you where it's written the file, and you'll be able to see how that looks. No, before that I'll run the game. I'll just prove that it's working. Okay, so typically when you go into a game and it has got a problem with the way it's registered, your D-pad might work but the buttons won't. So in this game I'll just check all the buttons work as well. Okay, so Mega Drive, again I'm just using the 8bitdo controller here, not the USB one I've got plugged in. bare knuckle. Now when I open this, in the bottom left we'll probably see some yellow text flip up and identifying the controllers. Okay. Right, start's fine. Okay, up, down, left, right's fine. And these jumps fine, punch is fine, special's fine. So it's seeing these buttons no problem. So the hack being turned off is absolutely fine. So the hotkey will probably work as well. So select start, there we go, out of that. So now what I'll do, I'll press start and we'll quit out of that and we'll quit Emulation Station and we'll go and check out the file. Okay, so that will be, if we change directory, that might be a bit dark, but I think you'll probably make out the text. It's change directory to apt/retropie/configs/Mega Drive. Wait, no, that's not right. configs/all/RetroArch joypads. And here we can see that not too long ago it wrote the controller file, which is 8bitdo FCT Pro. So if I edit that with nano, so you type nano and 8bitdo FC30 Pro, obviously your file name would be different depending on your controller. In here you can see some key points. So one, because Emulation Station wrote this file, it's got all the hotkeys in there as well. So the start select combo to exit, the start X to get into our GUI, the save state options, it's all in there. Mine's slightly iffy at the minute because I didn't do all the analog buttons correctly, but that's just because I didn't press it properly. I'm looking for the A button. There we go. A 0. See, now that's correct. Well, obviously it's correct because it works. But if I wrote a file in here with the hack off, then these numbers would be different and they wouldn't work. So I'm tempted to do that actually to just prove the point. But these are the numbers that should be in there. And I'll put in the description of the video here on YouTube a link to the RetroArch kind of repository for controllers, and in there you'll see the correct numbers that should be appearing. I wouldn't suggest copying those files out and putting them in your in these files, the controller files on RetroPie, because they don't include all the hotkeys, etc. But it's useful just to reference to see what the key should be. It just proves that your key mapping is right. But as I said, the easiest fix is probably just to change the hack in that Bluetooth menu, restart, re-add the controller, and this file will get overwritten with the different codes. But yeah, let's try it with that other hack off. If I quit out of that, and I could have done that from the command line, go into the options from the command line, but I'll just do it here. So RetroPie and RetroPie setup. And now we're going to set up and Bluetooth, and I'm going to turn the hack on. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I'll cancel out of that. I'm not sure it's going to work like this, but I'll try. Okay, so the hack's off, on. And now I'm going to add the controller again. Okay, so 2 gamepads detected. I'll press 8bitdo again. Okay, we'll go through this. Up, down, left, right. Left thumb, right thumb. Okay, up, down, left, right. That was fine. Okay, it was just me doing it wrong last time. Up, down, left, right. Right, so they're all logged. Okay, and we'll check out that file in a second, but first I'll go back into the game and start that. And I'm using the Bluetooth controller to do that, by the way, so Emulation Station's happy with it. As you saw, when we did this with the hack off, it worked fine. I had no problem. Now we've put the hack on, I've recreated the controller configuration file, and let's see how it plays. Okay, so start button's fine. Start's definitely fine. Okay, up, down, left, right, that's fine. And my buttons aren't working at all. Not getting anything there. So clearly writing the file with the wrong hack setting for 8bitdo is not liking it at all. Up, down, left, right's fine, buttons do nothing. And thinking about it, I'm not sure how I can quit out of this now, because my button's not working. But that's the point. Now if we go and look at that file, which I can't without restarting, but basically it's going to have the wrong codes in. So hopefully what you take away from this video is, if you have problems getting 8bitdo controller working, go into the menu, change the hack setting, do it again. And broadly that should do it. If that doesn't do it for you, take a copy of that controller file that we saw earlier and paste it on like pastebin.com, put a link to it in the forums, and I'm sure people can help you out. But broadly that should solve most people's controller configuration file problems. And you saw how easy it is to add it now. All of the options are automatically in there for you. You don't have to make any manual tweaks, and the file that gets created by Emulation Station for RetroArch has got all the codes in already. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the comments. I'll try to help. I'm particularly interested if anyone's got any issues trying to register an 8bitdo controller that hack setting doesn't fix. But like I say, if it doesn't, post your controller info up, and I'm sure someone will help out. Okay, thanks very much for watching.